All right. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I'm really excited to chat with you about your post-grad pitch today and how to really get companies on your side and convince them to hire you, right? That's what we're gunning for at the end of this. My name is Martin McGovern, and I started my career out in the marketing and advertising world, basically educating companies on how to, persuade you to give them your money. And over the years, as I've transitioned from the marketing world into the education space and from content and digital marketing into coaching, I've basically reverse engineered all of those strategies and behavioral sciences and everything like that in order to help you get your money back from these companies. So hopefully we'll have a fun discussion today about how it is that you can persuade companies, what level of honesty and authenticity you should bring with your personal brand, and what they're hoping to hear. Like, what is the right combination of words that opens the door, right? That's really what we're trying to figure out here. And so plenty for us to get into. I've worked with boot camps and universities all over the country, and I find that there's some real commonalities around graduates of any school, not just boot camps, but graduates of any school, around imposter syndrome, how to sell, the ways in which we speak to our experience and things like that, that I'm hoping we address today. Feel free to interrupt me with questions at any point, and let's get into it. So congratulations, not quite yet, you're almost there, you're finishing up, but you will soon be entering into the job hunt, where you may unfortunately end up with this face, staring at a screen, looking at the endless job board void, wondering what the heck is going on. And typically the things I'll hear from folks are, the company is asking for 3 years experience, what the hell? And I've applied to 100 places and I've only heard back from 1 or 2. And just to jump on both of those before we even jump into the discussion, no company would say 0 years experience, because they would be flooded with so many resumes, they wouldn't know what the heck to do with it. So they put 3 years to filter people out. And number 2, online applications, especially for a career transition, has about a 1 to 3% response rate. So if you apply to 100 jobs and you get 1 back, that's actually normal, unfortunately. I know it's more like a sideways thumb, but the stats are not good, which is why we need to get better at telling our stories, which is why we need to get better at pitching ourselves. Online job boards are, designed for people to make incremental moves upward in their career, not necessarily for big career changes. So we have to bring together a lot of different elements, from networking to volunteering to telling our story better, maybe working with recruiters if we find some good ones, to the online boards. It's kind of a combination of everything to make it work. So again, I'm going to be focused primarily on the pitch and the story today, but this sort of sets a foundation for a lot of other things as well. All right. So the first thing I want to touch, oh wait, I think it jumped. Yep. All right. We jumped a few. All right. So the way that this presentation is going to be broken down is into 3 sections. The first one is put them first. We already sort of touched on this in the pre-convo. The second one is sharing your unique stories. And the third one is actually perfecting your pitch. So I have a template I'm going to share with you by the end of this, which you will have a moment to kind of practice putting your pitch together, and we can help each other out along the way as well. So when I say put them first, what I'm trying to say is that everything on the internet is, when it comes to the job search, all the advice is designed around you. You need a personal brand. You need to treat yourself like a company. You need to follow your passion, find and follow your passion. You need to make what you deserve. You need to, right? It's so much focus on you. I don't know about you, but does it stress anyone else out? Anyone else stress out about all this spotlight put on you? Like, you're in probably the most, transitional moment in your life in some degrees. And everyone's like, not only should you be navigating this transition, but you should have everything figured out and know exactly what your passions are, and never question yourself, and be fully confident, and don't compare yourself to others. And the list goes on and on, right? Well, the truth is that this is all very difficult, psychological stuff to contend with. And if you actually look at like studies on narcissism and studies on social media in particular, you'll notice that the more we focus on ourselves, the more unhappy we become. So there's obviously a level to which you should be focused on yourself, right? You don't want to put yourself back into a bad work environment. You don't want to be in a job that doesn't fit your skills. You don't want to be in a toxic place, right? But in order to get to the place that you want to get to, we need to shift the focus away from our wants and needs onto their wants and needs, because the only way we'll get paid for our work is if it solves something for someone else. All right. And that's the big question I always have is, how do you actually communicate your value in a way that they care about? So we will definitely be digging into all of this. So let's start with what not to say. All right. Bootcamp grads tend to have a bias towards oversharing and sharing a lot of insecurities. So what do you think people typically will say when asked, tell me about yourself after graduating a bootcamp?
I've only been doing this for 3 months.
Exactly. I recently graduated and I'm excited for the opportunity to learn in this role, receive mentorship, and build my career. Sounds great, right? What do you think companies hear when you say something like this?
I have no experience.
They hear, hi, I'm inexperienced, unemployed, and need you to teach me, and I will cost this company a lot of money. All right. So we need to stay away from these insecurity statements and move towards more confident statements that talk about what we do know and what we can do. All right. They're not hiring you based on what you know. They're hiring you based on what you can do if given time and resources to do it. Right. I was chatting with someone earlier today about imposter syndrome. Anyone feeling that right now? Yeah, hands go up. There it is. Imposter syndrome is funny because people who talk about how to get over imposters, has anyone gotten advice on what you should do about your imposter syndrome? Has anyone been told what you should do about it to get rid of it or whatever?
I've been told to fake it until you make it.
Fair. Okay. So just pretend you feel like an imposter. So pretend more. That's great advice. All right. The funny thing about imposter syndrome is it's less about being an imposter and more about getting caught. All right. So I don't think I can get rid of your imposter syndrome, or really anyone's, because it kind of pops up here and there throughout your careers. Anytime you get a new challenge, you get hit with imposter syndrome. The question then just becomes, when it happens, how do you respond to it, right? What's the best response to imposter syndrome? Is it to run away? Is it to fight, flight, or flee? All those different things, right? In my mind, the best thing we can do, and it doesn't eliminate imposter syndrome, it just puts more context around it, is to realize that these companies are complete shit shows. All right. They are complete messes. All right. Who here has worked for a company that's been an absolute nightmare? Were you stressed out trying to get that job because you thought it was some like amazing company that you were going to work for? Yep, there's the nods, right? Maybe not. Maybe you knew it was a bad place when you were getting in. Who knows? But most companies are just people running around with their hair on fire trying to put out messes, right? So they put up this job board thing and they say, here's the job board. We want some unicorn who can do everything and do it for $2 an hour, right? And we go, oh my God, I could never do that. Someone else is going to get hired. I'm an imposter. But then you just think a little bit more and you go, what are they really trying to say with this job board? What are they really having a difficult time with? Companies don't sit around saying, boy, we have so much money, let's give it to someone. They sit around saying, we have an issue and we need to hire someone to solve it, right? So they're starting from a place of an issue, a problem, a fear, and they're needing someone who is confident in their ability to help them resolve that anxiety, right? No one hires me as a career coach because their career is going great and they have nothing and they just have extra money laying around. They hire me as a career coach because they've been trying to do it on their own for a while and they're having a full-on panic attack. All right. And my job is to calm them down and give them some sort of path. So your job is the same. Calm the company down and give them some sort of a path. Now, you won't know what that answer is. That's why this becomes a conversation with the company. And a pitch needs an audience, right? So as you develop your pitch, you build it in relationship with the audience that you're talking to, AKA the company that you want to hire you. All right. This is that them first approach. Why are they hiring for this position? What is it that they care about? And how can I speak to it? Okay. So I want to encourage you to stop saying me and I and my and all the things that we jam into our cover letter as we make it into this jargon-filled mess, right? I actually saw someone's cover letter once that every single sentence started with one of these: I, me, or my, in every single sentence of the cover letter. It was incredible. I was like, this must have been difficult to do to actually jam that many I words in there. It's really not good for us to spend the entire time just thinking about what our wants are. And so we need to start thinking about them. These are the people that we need to think about. What is the motivation of the recruiter that you're talking to? What is the incentive of the hiring manager that you're speaking to? What is the mindset of the CEO? And who are these networking contacts that we're talking to? Let's break these down a little bit. What do you think a recruiter's incentive is?
Hiring, getting people jobs.
Getting people jobs. Who are they incentivized by?
The company they work for.
The company they work for. So, and how do they get paid?
Getting you a
Commissions
job.
for bringing people in.
Commissions of your salary. So I will hear this all the time from bootcamp grads of like, I'm talking to recruiters and they keep on ghosting me. Or I'm talking to a recruiter and they said that they were going to get me a job, so I stopped searching. It's like, oh boy. Well, think about recruiters. Are they hired by the job seeker? No. Are they going to make any money if you get a job versus someone else that is in their roster? No. Are they even going to make much money off of a junior level person, or are they going to make way more money working with a senior level person that they poached from another company? Exactly. Their incentives are not actually aligned with career transitioners. So you might find some good recruiters, but generally speaking, their incentives are not aligned with you. So to put too much stock into their hands is probably not a wise decision unless you are playing into what they care about, right? What do you think hiring managers care about?
Finding people that are like going to be a good fit and like stay and like perform well in their role.
Yeah, putting together a team that won't fight and won't derail projects, right? And putting together a team that will make them look good. All right. So when we're talking to hiring managers, we really want to explain to them how we fit within a team context. So when someone says, what are your strengths and weaknesses? We think, oh, I have to share my insecurities and tell them that I have insomnia or something. No, we don't. We have to tell them what skills and what things they should assign to us and what things they should assign to other people, because I'm going to get this done quickly and someone else might get this other thing done quickly. Or I'm really good at data analysis, but please don't have me present to the C-suite, right? Those are the things that we should be communicating, obviously, in the best way possible. I'm being a little jokey with the way I answer it. What about CEOs? What do they care about?
Big picture.
Big picture, industry trends, bottom line, right? And that's the key here. We have to think about how our role impacts the bottom line of a business. If we want to make X number of dollars, we have to realize that the company won't give it to us unless this role will make them more, probably twice, 2 times as much, if not more, than they're going to pay us, right? So if you want to make 70K, how are you going to make them 140,000, right? Maybe you won't have the exact numbers, but you can at least understand how you impact the bottom line, right? Does anyone here know exactly how your role will benefit a company's revenue? Does anyone have any guesses?
My understanding, well, it depends on exactly what your role, what you're doing, but I do know that streamlining processes, getting rid of, I guess streamlining processes is probably the best way to say it.
Sure. So if you streamline a process, what happens?
Takes up less time, less resources,
Less
saves them
time,
money.
less resources, saves money. So you can save money, you can make money, you can improve customer retention, you can get more customers, you can get more referrals to other customers. There's a million things that we can do to help a business grow, right? But we have to think about what they want, because the only way that this role is going to get filled is if the person who opened up the position went to their higher up with a budget and a plan. We need this role. We have this much budget. I need to advocate for that budget and actually get it approved. And then we need someone who will confidently fill that role so that we can justify the budget, right? So you need to start thinking about the ROI of your role. And this is probably the biggest disconnect. And the reason why most people feel imposter syndrome is that, again, we're too self-focused. We're like a head in a jar. We don't realize what impact our work has on a business. So we don't understand why they would hire us. Like we think almost everything's like a gift. Like someone would only ever meet with me for a networking meeting out of the goodness of their heart. Someone would only ever hire me out of the goodness of their heart. When the truth is that they're hiring you because they're struggling, and they're meeting with you for a networking meeting because they know they should be networking too, and you saved them the outreach, right? So a lot of times people are acting selfishly, but it's mutually beneficial, and that's wonderful, all right? How do we actually figure out what they need though? That's the question. Well, Google does exist, all right? I know once we get into the weeds of the job search, we will forget that Google exists, but Google exists and it has the answers to pretty much anything that you want to do with the job search. It's just a lot to sort through. All right. So I empathize with the fact that it's overwhelming. But my favorite thing to do is just literally type in, why would someone hire, and then insert your title. All right. So why would someone hire a business analyst? And then you click on the results, right? There's articles written about it. There's consulting websites that have entire sales pages dedicated to it. There are like how-to guides, and probably every boot camp has a reason, like this is why companies hire for these roles, right? So my favorite thing is to just go to some of these websites and see what they're saying. And then you will answer the question. You don't have to come up with something out of your own brain matter. You can take a look at what's already out there. So if I want to say like, why would someone hire a career coach? And I go to someone's website and look at all the reasons that they say that they can help people, that's going to give me a pretty good idea as to what sort of services I may want to provide, right? And if you take these results and you go to some website, you could actually borrow some of their copy, right? Web developers help you do X, which will increase your revenue. All right, so I'm going to let that go into my brain, mix in with all the things that I know. And then when I put my resume together, it might come out in my summary, or it might come out in a bullet point, or it might come out in, a conversation I have in a networking meeting, right? Allow yourself to just absorb the sales material of other companies so that you can be more articulate about your industry and your role. Any questions on this or the ROI piece of things? Does anyone have any other ideas of how your job might affect a bottom line? What titles are you going after right now, or after you graduate? What titles will you be chasing down?
Well, sorry, to answer the first question, I was going to say like new products, development. So new things to sell.
Cool.
Would be another
Yeah,
reason to hire new people.
So helping a company better develop, promote, and sell new products. That's huge. Because more products equals more ways to engage, right? Diversification of their product line. Anyone else? What titles are you chasing down? Come on, you got to know what jobs you're going after at least.
Like,
CEO.
CEO. All
um,
right. You're going to start your own business and be a CEO?
No, junior. Junior developer.
Cool. Junior developer. So what does a junior developer in your mind do at a company?
Very basic things that you can't destroy too much.
And this is the mindset I want to tackle, right? Because you're coming at it from a defensive place of please don't give me anything that I'll break, right? Like it's already starting with the failure and then working its way in. Like how, so if I came to you and you said, what does a career coach do? And I say, I kind of can help you with your resume as far as don't break it. It's like, I mean, obviously that sentence doesn't make sense, but you get where I'm coming from, right? The hesitancy. If we don't believe that we can actually help a business, well, then a business isn't going to believe that we can actually help the business. And it's so interesting that we can have this sort of disconnect between, I want to make $75,000, but I have no idea how I'm going to help a business, right? Like that disconnect is so interesting in the job search. And so we need to bring those two things closer together, right? So if I'm a junior dev, why would I be brought onto a team? Well, you could imagine a team with one developer who should be building new products and should be doing X, Y, and Z, but can't because they are always spending their day fixing small bugs and never being able to work on the bigger picture goals of the business. They would need a junior dev to take some of those bugs off of the hands of the senior dev or the primary dev so that that person can go build better products. So your role is justified in the fact that you're going to free up time for someone else on the team to go get things done. So maybe fixing the bugs isn't going to like make your salary back, right? But taking the bugs off of the hands of the primary coder is going to free up their time to go launch that product that they've been trying to get out for 6 months. And that's going to make the money that will pay for both of your salaries. All right. So now we can sort of see how we fit in with the ecosystem, right?
Yeah, I was thinking as a junior developer, because that's obviously when I'm looking around, that's kind of like the role that we're going to be stepping into. It was a team contribution. Who knows what you're going to have to ask of me? And although I would say right now we're kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. But your career, theoretically, whatever the hell I'm asked to do is going to kind of push me in a direction. So I'm definitely thinking of this as like all right, let's see what problems do you have. Let's solve them.
Yeah,
that's kind of like my mentality.
that's exactly the right mentality. What problems do you have? Let's see if I can solve them. That's actually the pitch. What problems do you have? Let's see if I can solve them. Here's what I've done in the past, and I'm pretty sure I could solve your stuff too. All right.
Could
Like,
be good, could
yeah,
be bad.
That's the
50-50.
level, but that's like literally the level of confidence. It's like a kind of calm, open-minded confidence, right? It's not saying I can do everything and I actually should be a senior developer, because that's arrogance, right? Confidence is just not being afraid to get in there and start Googling. All right. So we want to sell to them like they would sell to us, right? Could you imagine if Nike put out an ad that said, just pay us, right? Like, hey, Nike, just pay us. Our shareholders need money. Buy our shoes. I just bought some new Nikes this morning. I didn't buy them because I care about their shareholders. I bought them because I watched 700 YouTube videos and that was the one that they recommended I buy, right? Because I have a very specific thing I need to do with those shoes. And so this is where it's like, if Coca-Cola is still advertising their product, even though it's been around for hundreds of like 100+ years or whatever it is at this point, there's clearly some truth in the fact that if we stop explaining what we do, people won't know, right? If Coca-Cola stops putting up billboards, you will stop buying Coke. You will end up buying Fanta or something like that, right? So we need to sell to them the way they sell to us. They wouldn't say, you know, buy our shoes to make our shareholders happy. What they do say is, hey, do you want to start lifting weights? Yeah, I'd like to start lifting weights. I have been going to the gym. Are you wearing your running shoes? I am wearing my running shoes. Do your legs feel wobbly? Sometimes. That's going to screw up your knees. Get these shoes instead, right? Okay, I guess I'm sold. I'm going to spend $100. All right. We really need to start thinking in those terms, right? So when you talk to a company, it's not, I went to a boot camp. I know these things. I want to be doing this. I want to have an impact. It's your company seems to be trying to launch this new product. Your company is getting a lot of competition from the industry. Your company is attempting to solve these customer problems. Where are you struggling with that? Maybe I can help. And then you start having a conversation of how you can help. Jesus was endorsed by Coke. Yes, indeed he was. You know, that's what they put in the sponge at the end of the, all right, too dark. Next slide. Job boards or billboards. Has anyone looked at the job boards yet? Are they intimidating?
I have been looking at them. I'm actually experiencing much less intimidation this time around because I'm sort of trying to take like a breadth first kind of approach where I'm like, okay, like I might not fit all of these requirements for all of these, but I'm not going to lose anything if I send them an application, so I might as well.
Yeah, nothing to lose. I love that mindset. The truth is that they are advertisements too. Have you noticed that the majority of the copy in the job board and the job listing is about their company's like mission? Who cares? Who cares what you paid some marketing team to tell you what your mission was? I don't know. I've written missions for companies. They're jargon, you know? And like, the truth is that you look at this and you realize this is an ego statement. This isn't like actually a helpful document in a lot of ways. Sometimes there's some good stuff in there, but generally speaking, I always like to put sort of odd hypothetical around things in order to reduce the anxiety around it. Okay, so that's why I say companies are just a bunch of people with their hair on fire running around trying to put things out. Are they all that way? No, but it's fun to think that way instead of they're all perfect and I'm inadequate, right? So I think David Foster Wallace or someone said, if you're like having road rage and you got cut off on the freeway, imagine the person in the other car is like driving their sick kid to the hospital, right? Is it true? Probably not. They're probably a jerk. But is it better for you to think the other thing? 100%, right? So when we look at a job listing, I like to look at it as a complete overstatement of what it is. All right. The general rule is if you have 60% of what's listed on there, you're good to go. But why are they asking for 100%? Well, they're probably asking for it, and this is the made up story in my head, because their boss said, hey, can you put together a job description for a new junior dev role? And you go, okay. And you go to your desk and you go, how do I write this job description? Well, I guess I should look up junior dev job descriptions on Google. And you copy and paste and Frankenstein together some sort of job description. You bring it back to your team. People give you feedback on it. You add things in. John wants this, Mary wants that. You add it all in. You don't really question it. You just put it in. And then at the bottom, it says 0 years experience. And you give it to your boss and they go, well, why don't we try for someone with some experience? So you go, okay, 3 years experience, because who would put 0, right? And suddenly you've got this Frankenstein mess that you would literally have to pay twice as much of your budget to get someone who has all those attributes, right? That is how I like to picture it, because then it's like, all right, well, if this thing was just cobbled together by some HR person who doesn't know what the heck they're doing, I get to apply to it because I'm also someone who's just trying to figure out how I can help, right? No harm, no foul. Now, That being said, we want to take the best keywords from multiple things, put them into our resume so that we can increase our chances, and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, job boards are marketing documents. They are billboards. They are sales pages. They are not necessarily the truth. How many of you have applied for a job, gotten into that job, and then found out that your role was nothing like it was described in the job description, or they changed it on you 6 months in? Yeah. See those hands? That happens all the time. So companies, when they put this together, are making their best estimate of what they think they need. And then through the process of interviewing, they actually figure it out. So the number of times I've seen people go in for a full-time job and leave with a contract, or go in for one role and leave with a completely different one, happens all the time, because you have to realize this isn't set in stone. This is an idea of what they think they need help with. And then our job as the applicant is to help them confirm that that's what they need. And then if we fit those qualifications, then we can move forward. And my favorite thing is when you realize it's not a fit, people get really disheartened, right? So I actually had someone earlier today, he's like, I just turned down a job. They couldn't afford my services. I go, cool. Did you recommend someone else for the job? And they said, why would I do that? I go, because think about it. You're turning them down, but you're still helping them come up with a solution. That's that helpful mindset that you bring to the job search that will endear you to your network because you're referring people to jobs, endear you to that company because even when you turn them down, you still are helping. And then now you've got someone on the inside in case a senior role ever does come up in the future, right? So let's say you go in and you're too junior. Be like, okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm too junior. Would you like some recommendations of some senior people? I'd be happy to make introductions. And then you introduce them to some mentors that you met throughout your networking, right? That's how you start building a really robust network of people helping each other, all right? Just some ideas to toss out there. And here's the beauty. If you don't know the answer, it's fine. You're making a transition in your career. Ask questions. It's actually better to ask questions than to pretend you have all the answers, because people can totally see through the pretend, right? So the fake it till you make it, it works to a degree until you pretend like you don't ever have any questions. And then people go, this person should probably have asked a question at this point. I actually interviewed someone, an alumni event recently, and the person said that when he's interviewing people, he asks progressively more difficult questions, even ones that he doesn't know how to answer, just to see when this person will stop BSing and give him a straight answer of, I don't know that, but I'll figure it out. Because they don't want someone that just pretends that they know everything, because that person's detrimental to a team, because that's the person that won't ask questions and will just go off and pretend they know it. And then 3 weeks later, the deadline won't get hit, right? So a lot of this is about how will you act in the role too. Research only goes so far. The real goal here is to build trust and rapport in the interview, all right? And the key thing here is that they really do want to trust you. Has anyone been on the other side, on the hiring side, and done the interviews? No one. No one's ever interviewed people? Okay, I'm going to let you in.
I mean,
on
I
some
hire,
Go ahead.
I do hire people, but it's in a very different context. So I run a wedding band, so I hire musicians and stage crew all the time.
Well, there might be some overlap here. Do you get the person in the room hoping they're going to fail? Or do you want this to be the right person so you
Never.
can stop the interview process?
Oh my God. I'm doing this to stop stressing out.
You
I'm
want
trying
this
to fill a
interview
role.
process to end as soon as possible. And the worst is when the company keeps dragging it out. I actually talked to one of my friends the other day. She's like, we've been trying to hire someone for 8 months, but the company won't tell me what the budget is. So I keep approving people, and then HR keeps turning them down because we're not paying them enough, I'm assuming, but she has no insight into it. She's the one hiring the person for her team, and she doesn't have insight into what they're going to pay the person. Like, this is how broken some companies are. And so we have to realize that this person we're stepping into the room with, there's like the cliche of the jerk interviewer who's like trying to make you fail, right? And I've had some pretty brutal interviews in my life. Like, I had one at 5 p.m. on a Friday where the person was on his BlackBerry the whole time getting ready for a flight. And he'd never even looked at me the whole interview. and it was all analytic based, and I can't do math. So it was like really bad. At a certain point, he just like gave me a calculator. I was like, even with this, I don't know what I'm doing. Please let me out of this room. And so that's analytical marketing. Glad I'm not doing that anymore. But there's some pretty funny stuff that happens, and we have to realize like that's the outlier. The truth is that most people are like being pulled into a room to do an interview with very little prep, or they were told like earlier that week that you're interviewing someone on Thursday. And there's not really a lot of resources in most companies. And if there are, they're like, use this list of questions and fill out this survey after the interview and things like that. And these people are having this added on to an already very busy schedule. So they're like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to work late tonight or take this work home because I have to go interview 2 people today, you know? So they want you to win. They actually want you to win because they don't want to have to interview more people. So we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be curious and excited and helpful. And really at the end of the day, they're hiring off of gut instinct and then backing it up with your credentials, right? It's not usually credentials and then nothing else, right? Like some people have all the credentials, but they're jerks or they're not easy to talk to in the interview. And that's what trips them up. So we have to realize it's sort of a combination of both, but most people make decisions based off gut instinct. So if you can connect with them in any way, shape, or form by asking questions, being curious, and trying to help, you can really make go a long way. Any questions on this? I feel like this is one of the most sort of difficult to pin down parts, is that sort of how do you make a connection with someone in an interview? What questions do you have around that? Has anyone struggled to make a connection in the interview, in an interview in the past? Do you just get like a stone-faced person that you're interviewing with, or, you know, what have been some of your experiences and how have you found ways to make strong connections?
I've definitely had, I don't know, interviews are easier than observations. When people are observing you, they're like,
Yeah.
and that's really uncomfortable. You can't tell at all what's going on. I've gotten some of those jobs and it was like really not their personality. So it's really odd. Conversationally, I don't know. I don't seem to, if they like humor, they'll be fine. Otherwise, you know, this might not be a good fit.
Yeah. And a lot of it is mirroring the other person, right? So this is a big thing you have to learn as a coach or an interviewer, is when someone comes in with high energy, you try and match that energy to some degree. When someone comes in low energy, you try to bring down your energy to match them to some degree. And being able to mirror people's tone. So like if they lean forward, you lean forward. If they lean back, you lean back. Like these little triggers that make people feel more comfortable around you are all things that you can start to think of. We could get really deep on that topic, so I'll just leave it there. But generally speaking, the goal here is to build rapport rather than get everything right. All right. So we want to put them first. Why are they hiring for this role? How do your skills solve their problems? And what ROI do you bring to the business? All right. Answer these questions and you're going to be in a much better spot than just, I know what I want, give it to me, which is the general job seeker tone, right? Next up comes your story. All right. So the story is a tough one, especially when you're making a career transition, because generally speaking, you're trying to get away from something, not necessarily just focused on the excitement of the next job, right? So whenever I'm working with bootcamp folks, they tend to want to ignore the past, all right? But there's so much in our past that we need to connect in this pitch that without it, we almost ruin our chances of being differentiated from other candidates, right? So when I introduced myself to you, I mentioned my marketing and advertising background, and I connected it to my coaching work, right? Used to help credit card companies get your money. Now I help you get money back from them, right? That double-sided story shows growth and balance in the development. Was it that linear when I was going through it? It was a little messier than that, right? But looking back, we can connect the dots, all right? So you want to really hone in on what it was about your past that was positive, and then connect it to what you're trying to do today. And we'll get into how to do that. A couple things here. If you have 4 to 6 good stories to tell of previous work experiences, you should be in a great spot to answer most interview questions. I also want you to focus on the key learnings from each of these experiences, not necessarily the experience itself. And then focusing on what you can do over what you have done is more important in the interview as well. All right. So what are some things that you shouldn't say? You should not say, I like to solve problems. I want to make a difference. Why not? What do you think?
Because everybody says this and it's kind of just like white noise.
Exactly. Everyone says it and it's white noise. It's also just not specific enough, right? Whenever someone says, I like to solve problems, I always say, I know someone who needs their dog walked. Would you like to walk it? And they go, no. And I go, well, then you don't like to solve any problem. You like to solve a very specific set of problems. What are those ones? And then we start getting specific, right? So what are the specific problems you like to solve? Because literally the definition of a job is solving problems. It's just which problems does this job solve and which ones does this job solve, right? I don't solve coding problems. I solve job search problems. You might solve coding problems or UX problems, whatever it might be, right? And I want to make a difference. Also vague. What kind of a difference, right? Some of the worst people in history made a real big difference, but I don't think we want to aspire to be them, right? Because this is what they hear. I don't understand the value of my work or why you would hire me. So I'm just going to use platitudes. All right. Let's stay away from the platitudes. So typically when you get to an interview, people say, here's a list of questions that you should practice. And then you feel like you have to come up with a new story for every question. And if you do that and you have a list of 110 of the most commonly asked interview questions, you'll probably drive yourself insane, because who has 100 stories, right? We're not comedians who have been working for 20 years. So just a handful of stories should do it. All right. When you have a story of a time that you struggled, a story of a time you succeeded, a story of a time you had a conflict, a story of a time you showed leadership, and a handful of others, you should be able to answer a wide variety of questions with these core stories. All right. So I could tell a story about how I stepped into a leadership role after being a contractor, and I could just talk about the leadership piece of that. Or I could tell the conflict that I had while doing that with one of the people that reported to me. Or I could talk about how I struggled with the mathematics part of that role, right? Or I could talk about any number of other things, right? You can just hone in on different parts of that same story and expand upon those in your interview, all right? So as you're thinking about your story, you're trying to convey different aspects of your abilities with the work you've already done. So we're not going to just make stuff up. So we got to pull from what we got. Does that make sense? I feel like I might have been a little vague on that one. Okay, I'm getting head nods, so we'll keep moving, but interrupt me at any point. So as I was just feeling vague, don't be vague, all right? Where, what, who, when, why, all the specifics, right? Use the STAR method. Anything you can do to paint a picture in their head, all right? If you said, hey, Martin, what do you do? And I said, I educate people. You're going to go, cool, like social studies in high school? And I'm going to go, no, like career stuff. And you're going to go, okay, like resumes or interview skills? Just talking about careers. Like you got to be specific. Otherwise people don't know what you do. All right. So if I were to say to you, what do you like to do? with your work. And you say, I like to solve problems. That's too vague, right? So I like to solve these kinds of problems for these kinds of companies to achieve these kinds of results. And you might have like a variety of these statements, right? I like to help schools train their students on how to do the job search to improve their outcomes. Or I like to help individuals rewrite their resume so that they can get more interviews through online job boards, right? Very specific, and I might have 10 of these, but the more specific you can be, the better. And when you're talking about your work here, get specific. What were the projects you worked on? What were the extracurricular activities you did? Break it down to the small things, all right? I ran this kind of test. I implemented this kind of survey. I, interviewed these customers. Like, get really specific with the actions you took rather than what most people do is on their resume, they'll just put attended a boot camp for X number of weeks. It's like, good for you. What did you do during that time, right? Always be specific. And here's how you can organize your stories. All right. So let's say you have a story. All right. Which one do I want to tell? What's an interview question you've been asked that annoys you? Just toss one out there for me. And not the tell me about yourself one, a different one.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Okay. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? I haven't answered this question in a long time. So let's see how I do. All right. Put myself on the spot. So if I were to just take the situation, problem, action, result, and learning method here. So has anyone here heard of the STAR method? Okay, so the STAR method is a way of breaking down a story so that it's easier to tell. So instead of rambling and rambling and rambling, which I'm very good at, I'm a professional rambler. What you do is you say, here was the situation I was in. Where did I work? What role did I have? Here was the problem I encountered. Here was the action that I took. And here's the result that I achieved. And then I'm going to put an L at the end of here's what I learned from that I'll apply to future roles. All right. So I currently work with boot camps, helping them improve their student outcomes. All right. So where do I see myself in 5 years? Helping boot camps improve their student outcomes to a much larger degree. So currently, I work with boot camps and universities to coach their students on how to improve their job search, which ultimately allows them to land more jobs and get more opportunities. The problem that I'm seeing is a lot of boot camps don't have much video content to go along with their coaching practices. It's a lot of written content. And I'm noticing that job seekers just don't have the energy to read long blog posts about jobs. So one of the things that I'm trying to do in my work right now is incorporate a lot more video content and even interactive content like live streams into my coaching to get people more engaged. I've done this via LinkedIn and even done some Twitch stuff, and it's gotten pretty good engagement, but I can just sort of see already some other people that are doing it way better than I've implemented. And there's some things I'm trying to kind of learn from those Twitch users to get better at this. And what I've learned from this is that it's actually something that students really want. So I'm helping organizations implement better video strategies. And so in 5 years, I'm hoping that I'm doing that at scale with all of my clients and really helping them engage their students in newer ways other than just emails and blog posts. Do you see how organized that is? And I just made that up on the spot. I've never told that before. But once you have the structure and once you practice the structure, you can answer these questions in all those different ways, right? So tell me about a strength or a weakness, all right? One of my strengths is being able to listen or being empathetic. There's a whole host of things I could choose from, but as a coach, I need to be really good at listening. So a situation I was in was I was working with a woman who was in her 50s and she was going through a divorce on top of the job search. This presented a problem for me. I had to adjust her coaching to fit her schedule because she was going through a lot of difficult legal situations. The action I took was presenting her with a couple of different options The result I got was she picked the one that worked for her, and we were able to work together. She eventually got a job. And what I learned from that is that there is no one size fits all solution for coaching, and everything needs to be tailored. All right. I went through that quick, but I could draw that out into a much more detailed story in an interview. All right. So try to use this STAR method in order to better tell your stories and get into the specifics. Because what you don't want to do is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? My strength is that I really love getting into the details. And my weakness is that I procrastinate. Well, if you really love getting into the details, how come I have no detail in your answer, right? So give your answer, then tell a story that has the details. Give your answer, then tell a story that has the details. And the key thing here, tie it back to them with the learning, all right? So what I learned from this experience, here's a good one. What's a struggle you've had with a coworker? Does anyone have an answer for that one that comes to mind? A struggle that you've had with a coworker in the past?
I was told to talk to my supervisor or HR about it.
Just in general, or what was the struggle?
Just conflicting ideas, more like I don't know if the coworker had some sort of like grudge against me.
Okay. So I'm glad I
yeah.
asked this one, because I can already see you hesitating quite a lot with telling this story and maybe not even wanting to tell it. When they ask you questions in the interview, they are not asking for the most intense experience. They're just asking for an experience. All right. So I've made this mistake too. Especially with this question. Tell me about a conflict with a coworker. And I had just lost a job and I was kind of reeling from it. And I really didn't like this coworker. And honestly, every time I thought about this person, I would get physically angry. So I went from like, I'm the most pleasant job seeker that you've ever interviewed, to, oh, the worst conflict I've ever had was with this person. And then like all of a sudden the whole tone of the interview changed and I was like red and sweaty and like not pleasant. And I was like, how do I recover from this? And I did not recover from that. It was not a good interview. But what we are trying to do is give them an example of something that we've learned from. So tell me about a time that you've had a conflict with a coworker. Talk about the time that you wanted the button to be green and they wanted the button to be blue, and you had to have a little bit of a debate and maybe bring in a third party to resolve it. And it wasn't the biggest issue on the planet, but you actually lost. They went with the blue button and you realized that, hey, at least I got my voice heard, but I'm a team player, so I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to make this a sticking point that derails the project. And what I learned is that I should always make my voice heard, but I'm part of a team and it's not up to me what every decision is. So I'm happy to move forward regardless. These are the kinds of things that we want to be talking about. Stuff that is relatable, stuff that is educational for you in your career, and stuff that you can tie back to this role that you're applying to, right? So I don't want to talk about the biggest conflict I've had with a coaching client when they say, what conflict have you ever had with a client? But I do want to tell a conflict that I've learned from, right? So like I came across someone who had financial issues. That's a conflict. And what I learned from it is, well, I don't want to put someone out even more when they are already struggling financially. So I refunded their money. And I realized that I should probably ask that question before I work with people rather than after. All right. So anyway, these are all things that I'm hoping are landing, but let me know if you have more questions as we go. Because what you learned is key. That is the number one thing. It's all about learnings. The situation itself is secondary to the learning that you're expressing at the end of the story. All right. Before I move on, is that learning piece clear? Is there any questions on that? Like what kinds of learning experiences you should share or not share? Do you feel like you have a good idea? All right, I'm seeing head nods. Well, let me know if it doesn't. We can always circle back. Now here's like my controversial slide that I even partially disagree with because it's cringy, but we do want to have a little bit of a politician's mindset going into these interviews. All right. We don't necessarily want to again, wait for them to ask the question before we come up with an answer. All right. This is why I say have 6 stories in your back pocket ready to go for whenever you need them. Right. I don't actually plan my stories before these talks, but I have so many stories that I've told so many times because I do talks all the time that I'm able to pull them out sort of from the back of my head. And that's the difference between memorization and just being ready. All right. So don't expect to be able to do this on your first interview, but after you interview for a while, after you network for a while, you'll start realizing which stories people respond well to and which stories people don't respond well to. Kind of like when I tell that story of the coworker I didn't like, it's like, well, I don't like to tell that one because no one really responds well to it. So, and I don't even respond well to it. So I need a different story there, right? A politician doesn't get up on stage and say, boy, I hope they ask me about Joe the farmer today. They get up on stage and say, I don't give a crap what question they throw at me. I'm talking about Joe the farmer. Again, I don't want you to be a full politician, but take some leeway there because the questions you're going to be asked are bad. Most questions you're going to be asked in an interview don't even make sense if you break them down. All right. What are your strengths and weaknesses is a weird question that no one would ever ask anyone outside of an interview. Has anyone ever just been sitting with their friends going, what are your strengths and weaknesses, man? Like anyone? No. Right. So why are they
definitely had conversations where we tell people their weaknesses?
Fair enough. You are such a jack. And so what I'm trying to like, the idea here is like, there's a question behind the question that they're asking. And that's the one that you want to answer. So a question like, tell me about yourself, which isn't even a question, it's a statement, but regardless, tell me about yourself, right? Does that stress anyone out when you get that question?
Yeah, for sure.
Why does it stress you out? Like, what do you think you're being asked or expected to do?
That's sort of the, like, that's the catch-all, give me the perfect pitch about yourself and like, tell me why you're great.
Yeah, right? It's terrifying. The truth is that this person probably just came off another meeting, didn't look at your resume yet, doesn't know who you are, sat down and said, okay, tell me about yourself, because it was the first thing on the list of every single list of interview questions that you would download from the internet, right? So are they really asking you to tell me about yourself out of like personal curiosity, or are they just reading something off of a list, or just that's kind of what's expected of how you kick off an interview, right? The truth is that it's just what's expected. It's how you start an interview. And it's so funny because we all know it, but we're never prepared for it. And we always are like caught off guard by the thing that everyone asks, right?
Can you respond with, what do you want to know?
Nope. Because because they don't know what they want to know. Like, that's the problem. They're asking you this because they don't really understand what's going on, right? So here's what I like to think of. Remember, I make up these imaginary situations to help me through these things. When someone says, tell me about yourself, what I hear is, I'm not sure how to kick this off. Can you kick this off? And then I get to go, how do I want to kick this off? I'd like to talk about what I did prior to this role, what I'm currently doing, and how it helps your business. That's how I want to introduce myself. So I started my career out in marketing and advertising, where I learned about behavioral science and how to persuade people. That led me into helping people build personal brands to sell their products and get new jobs, which led me into the education space, where I learned about career coaching, which is kind of like reverse engineering marketing for job seekers to land jobs. I'm really excited about this role because you help job seekers at this boot camp achieve X, Y, and Z. And I'm curious to hear what sort of things your students are struggling with and how I might be able to help, right? That's how I want to introduce myself, my past, my present, and our future, all right? And then it's setting up the interview. I'm priming them with the information I want them to ask me the rest of the time. So by saying, I'm curious about your students, it puts the ball back into their court. And now they're going, oh, well, we're struggling with these things. And I go, great, I can help you in these ways. So let's say you're a teacher turned UX designer. All right. I started my career. Oh, I'm seeing some fingers. I started my career in education, teaching students in X grade. And what I really learned about myself, remember to focus on the learnings. What I learned about myself is that I'm really good at creating course plans. What am I thinking of? What's the phrase there? Not course plans.
Lesson plan.
Lesson plans. Thank you. I'm really great at creating lesson plans that are engaging. And that got me thinking about other ways I could develop that skill, which led me into UX, where now I'm really steeped in research and creating strategies for companies to better engage their customers. I'm curious to learn more about the types of things you're looking to do with this UX role and how I might be able to help your company engage better with the people, with your customers. I'm saying customers 20 times. I'm getting in my own head here, but you get where I'm going, right? So you connect your past to your present and to your future. All right, so that's actually, I jumped ahead to the pitch, but do you have any questions on what I just laid out there? All right, so again, when you're thinking of your stories, what are your 4 to 6 struggle and success stories? What did you learn from these experiences and how do they inform your future work? And now we're going to bring it all together by drawing in your past, simplifying your narrative and creating a pitch. So what not to say? I didn't like my past job, so I quit and I changed jobs to make more money, because what they hear is I quit when things aren't perfect and I'll probably quit this job in the future. Always want to focus on the positive changes. I left my teaching job so I could get more involved in research, not so I could get away from those brats, right? And well, that's just the same thing. And this is where we bring in our past as a differentiator. Everyone who's interviewing for this job is a UX person, but only a handful of people are teachers who turned UX, or musicians who turned into coders, or marketers who turned into coaches, right? Your background is what differentiates you and gives you a different perspective than other people. Then double down on that present, which is I'm here to bring value to companies because I love UX. And then project yourself into their future. Here's how I help your company. All right. So we're kind of, I went ahead and now we're catching up. So how do you answer? Tell me about yourself. My past leads to my present, which leads to my future. All right. I want to pause on this slide because I know each of you has a story here that we can dive into. So in the chat, I don't need you to write the whole thing out. Just write down the roles. So I was a marketer. Now I'm a career coach, and I'm excited to help your school improve student outcomes. All right. What is yours? All right. Teacher turned UX designer. Excited to help companies better engage their users. All right. Try and put it in the chat here. What is your past, present, future story? So I did this thing. I now do this thing, and I'm excited to help in this way. I'll give you a minute or two to put it into the chat. If you have questions, of course, unmute. All right, customer service rep to a software developer, excited to help companies develop better apps for customers and increase revenue. Love it. Spanish teacher to web developer, make information more accessible to everyone and do it in an efficient and simple way. Matt, I love this one. This one's great because it's also about language, right? And web development is about language, right? So you can say, I started my career off as a Spanish teacher because I have a real love of languages. One of the languages I was most excited to learn was how to code. And that led me from being an educator to being a web developer. Now I'm really excited to make information more accessible to people because I'm a teacher and I want people to be able to access information and help them get through it in an efficient and simple way, because I know that clarity of information leads to clarity of understanding, which leads to better engagement and better usage. And that is why I'm excited to help your business implement these things. Product analyst to a software engineer, excited to build new experiences for customers. All right, so we're getting there. And then the key thing to add in at each transition is, what did you learn about yourself? So I was a marketer and I learned I love behavioral science and what makes people behave. And that's what led me into coaching, because it's all about human behavior. For you, it might have been, I love languages. I wanted to learn the most complex and useful language. So I went into coding, right? Service industry professional to a front-end developer, excited to build seamless and engaging customer experiences that keep people coming back. And see how that ties into the service role, right? My background in service was about creating an environment that people wanted to return to. And I want to bring that into my UX work. Perfect. So we're already making those connections. I love it. Anyone stuck on that? Anyone have any questions on this sort of setup? And so just to kind of dig in a little deeper, when they ask you these questions, they are not sure always what they're asking. There's like a subconscious question behind it, right? So tell me about yourself is really just, hey, can you kick things off? Tell me what your strengths and weaknesses are isn't an inquisition into your insecurities. What it is I'm putting a team together and I've got 5 roles. I need to have a balanced team, right? I don't want 5 people that all love giving presentations, because then everyone's going to fight over who should give the presentation, right? I need 1 introvert who likes to do the data research, someone who likes to put together the presentation, and someone who likes to give the presentation. And if I only have the budget for 1 person, then it all lands on 1 person. But if I can have 3 roles, that's great. So what I'm really asking you is, on this team, when I'm assigning tasks, which tasks should I assign to you? And which tasks should I assign to other people? All right. And that's what they're asking, is what is your 80-20? What should 80% of your job be? And what should 20% of your job be? Your strength and your weakness. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means, please don't make it 80% of my job. Has anyone been in a job where 80% of the work was something you hated doing? What was the thing that they were asking you to do?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ray. No, that's all you.
It's definitely the same exact thing that I applied to do on paper. And it was just, I didn't like it, but I was doing it because of the pay. And it was giving people COVID tests.
Okay, well, there's that. Was it just the danger of it, or was it like interacting with people?
No, it was the interacting with people part of it.
There you go. Are you more of an introvert?
No, I'm not more of an introvert. It's just that that's like a little, like having the Q-tip up someone's nose when you don't know them is just a little too close for me. And I also had no training. I also had no training, was expected to like wrangle people's kids.
Okay, so there's a lot there. We can definitely break that down. If you ever want to, follow up on LinkedIn or something, we could talk more about it. But generally speaking, like, let's say you were in a role where everything that they wanted you to do was like put spreadsheets together, and you're not detail oriented, right? You should clearly state that that's a weakness of yours, not to say that you can't fill out a spreadsheet, but to say that 80% of your day should not be a spreadsheet. And of course, there's nice ways to say this and not good ways to say this, but or let's say you're a coder who really hates to give presentations. Be like, I can put together all the information and hand it off to the person who presents it, but please don't make me get up in front of a room of 100 people, right? So when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, it's more about preferences in the work that you're assigned, all right? And we can blow this out to all the different questions in the interview, right? Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. Isn't about the conflict, it's about the resolution. How did you resolve the conflict is the question. So That's what we want to focus on. The conflict is secondary. The resolution of how do I solve conflicts in my life? Do I ignore them and hope they go away, or do I confront them? And they want someone who has a calm way of confronting a conflict, right? So these are all things that we can start to assess when we start thinking about these questions. So here's how you write your super simple pitch. Merging a background in my previous role with my current role, I help companies accomplish these goals. You've already got it laid out in the chat here, all right? So the example would be merging a background in customer service and web development, I help companies create amazing experiences for their users online. And this is literally a pitch that you could put on your summary on your LinkedIn, in your resume, or wherever you want to put it. Merging a background in marketing with professional development, I help boot camps improve student outcomes and help individuals find jobs, right? As a merging a background in education with user experience, I help companies better understand their customers and build more engaging products, right? So we say what we've done, what we do, and how it helps. So if you want to take this example here or take this template and save it and use it in the future, by all means, screenshot it or whatever you need to do. Add it to your profiles and perfect your pitch. So how did you get here? What do you do? And how does it help? That is the core of your pitch. And again, it's tying the personal, it's tying you to them. You can't just talk about yourself, and you can't only talk about them. You need to talk about the relationship between the two. A pitch is about the relationship between you and the company, not about you. So I'm nothing without my clients. I'm just a dude who likes to talk about the taboo topics, right? Without people hiring me to do the job search stuff, I'm just, again, a dude who likes to talk about taboo topics. Like, what do you get paid? You know, like, so when I talk about myself, it has to be in relation to the school, or it has to be in relation to the client, or it has to be in relation to the company. All right. And the same goes for you in your pitch. You're a UX person because of your unique interest in UX or your unique interest in software development, but it doesn't exist in isolation without the client's needs tied to it. So I'm repeating myself. I'll stop there. What questions do you have about anything we talked about today or anything in the job search in general? Feeling good? Feeling like some of this makes a little more sense, a little less stressful? What's on your minds? Anyone feeling more stressed out? Go ahead.
I think this was great timing for where we're at right now. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but just about to really start applying to jobs and hopefully taking interviews. So this cut down on some of my stress. So thank you.
Cool. So I like to hear. Yeah, always assume incompetence over malice when you're dealing with companies. All right. Like, they're not actively trying to make you feel bad. They just suck at their jobs.
I like that.
CEO of my company, I'll hire you.
What was that?
All right.
I'm the CEO of my company.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'd
Junior
love to work
CEO.
for you, Matt.
He's applying for the junior CEO role, of Amazon.
It's going to be weird taking a spaceship to work, but yeah, I'll do it. Cool. Well, keep in touch. Let me know if you ever have more questions. I'm always happy to answer things, on LinkedIn. I've got a podcast and stuff. If you like that kind of thing, you can find it all there. But generally speaking, good luck, and I'm rooting for you. It's not an easy process. So keep your head up and reach out to each other or anyone else. But lean on each other for support. the moral support and the emotional roller coaster is the hardest thing to manage, I find, in the job search. The tactics are there. You just have to kind of ride the wave and keep doing it. All right. Cool. Great chatting with you all today. I'll share this up on my YouTube after it loads, and then ride the walrus. And then I'll try and maybe send it out to the group invite so you all have it as well. But good luck, and I'll hopefully we'll chat with you soon, or maybe not. Maybe you don't need me, and I love that too. So cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Martin.
Bye.
Have a
See ya.
great day.
Good to see everybody. See ya.